Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this special event on the day of the full moon. And also, we're having the Lionsgate energies very active at this time. It's like a very powerful combination that we can use for reintegration. Like that's basically the main topic that I want us to talk about during this event. And I have also written down a few notes as we are going to address. So basically, we're living in a period of the great unveiling. Everything is being brought to the surface for all to see, like nothing can hide now in the shadows. And you can see that also and globally in the public arena. And also it is very true for our personal lives as well, like old stuff or things that you wouldn't even be aware of normally are coming to the surface for you to confront it and to work through it, basically. Yeah. And after we are like, all these things are brought to our attention, then comes the time of reintegration. Because like we're entering a period, like not necessarily this year, but in the coming years or decades, well, like there is going to be this total transparency on all levels, just as it is in the higher realms, that like everything is shared and everything is transparent, everything can be accessed and integrated. And for us, in order to be in that space, we have to clear a lot of stuff. So we're like not bringing our garbage into that sacred space of sharing, basically. And now we're in the middle of this process. Okay, so hello, higher vibrations. Thank you for joining us for this beautiful full moon event.
Thank you. You know, this full moon is the last super moon of the year also. We're not going to have another full super moon until I think it's August 7th next year. Which will be interesting if that's true, because it'll be right on Lionsgate. You know, the experience we're having right now with this full moon, the super moon, and Lionsgate energies, like Guardian was saying, they're assisting each other to amplify the healing space. And it's kind of funny because it feels like counterintuitive or opposite, because we go through this experience where we're definitely sensing more density, where, you know, the things that, you know, we haven't really healed through completely, or at least looked at, has the ability to come forward and show us that it needs to be healed. And so it feels like it's a time of lower frequency, but in fact, what we're doing is we're clearing those things out, you know, and we can feel, I have in the past couple of days felt very unstable, unbalanced, uncentered, you know, and that's another symptom of us being asked to go back to center, to realign, to refocus, and you know, start back to doing the things that you did in the beginning. You know, these things come so easy to us that we forget to do it sometimes. For instance, meditation. After doing it so frequently, after a time, we can go there really easily, and then perhaps forget to do it again, to do it as frequently. And so back to the basics kind of time. That was my spiel about it, in agreement. I apologize if I repeated you a couple of times there, but
fine. Yeah. And yeah, like if anyone hasn't checked it out so far, I have released a channeled message for the full moon yesterday. And you can also find this mantra that I'm going to share for this period in the community section as well. And yeah, like it was brought through to be a type of energetic tool that can guide us and assist us through this process. So you can consciously make statements and manifest what can be manifested at this time. So now is a time for great reintegration, for letting go of stuff that do not longer serve us. And I'm going to read the mantra.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so put yourself in a centered place. Calm your mind, calm your body. And from the center of your heart, like state this truth with your entire being. You can also, you can find it in the pinned comment in the video of the full moon message. And also it's in the community tab of my channel. So it goes as, I accept and receive all higher guidance, which is there for my highest good. I am done rejecting my true authentic self. I am done rejecting all of the healing and love that I receive on a daily basis. I am done permitting myself to slip back into old destructive habits. I no longer I now fully embrace my true authentic self, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, just in case if anyone has missed it in the past 2 days.
That's the message I've been getting a lot the past little while too, is how important, I mean, all of us have, it's part of the lingo of spiritually awakened or awakening communities is being your true authentic self, you know, and when
how does that work?
Right. It's one thing at a time, you know, like we have learned to kind of hold back a lot of different elements of who we are for various different reasons, whether we are, you know, trying to be more gentle with the person that we're interacting with, or trying to fit in some way, but particularly those things, you know, and so it's one thing at a time, you know, in particular when it comes to these topics that we're talking about, that we talk about, Guardian and I, as well as on his Patreon community and in the Zoom meetings that I do, we talk about these things that we spent so many different experiences not feeling free to do so without consequence, you know, and now we're in this space where that is possible. And, you know, as we learn this new language of authenticity, we kind of clash with each other sometimes too, I've noticed. And that's beautiful. The clashing is not meant to be disharmonious. It's meant only to, it's like a catalyst, a activation for each other, you know, and we are in the realm of mirrors, truly, in a lot of ways. And so, you know, what am I going to mirror? You know, I on autopilot mirror who is in front of me, not copying them, but I automatically, my soul automatically shows them what's before them in order to help them. However, when we're spending time with others in this spiritual space, I'm finding that that's not needed. And so I'm learning a different use for those mirrors, you know, and so I'm choosing at this time to mirror and amplify the love. For that's really the answer for all of it. I did a small channeling right before this meeting started, and that was what just kept coming. Mother Mary just, and her love, how important the love is right now, to be in that space. You know, when you focus on, whatever you focus on becomes so much greater, so much more big and prevalent in your space. And, you know, it's not that we're denying other things. We're simply choosing to amplify the whatever it is that we feel is in alignment, you know, and right now is the time to do that. The sturgeon moon has been known, this, which is the full moon we're having now, has been known for this time of transformation. And the fact that it's a super moon on top of it is like really an ample space for this healing and to come forward into who you truly are, starting from your heart center. So to be your true authentic self, it's one thing at a time, you know, speaking your truth in whatever space that is the most comfortable for you in the beginning. Like Guardian's Patreon community, his isn't is private. It's not something that you will find on YouTube. And it's a group of people that gather together and have conversations. And then after about an hour, Guardian often will have like a meditation or he's channeling his guides. And then there's also a conversation after. And those are like exercise. Like what I see is a bunch of kids in kindergarten, they're on the balls and they're like figuring out how to play. And that's like what we are doing in those conversations. We're learning how to be the beautiful love light that we are in the experience of other energies, other people, and knowing that you're in a safe space. It's a good place to practice doing it in these meetings, you know, and there is no judgment, you know, and any kind of weird thing that comes up, everyone else has already gone through it. So there's no judgment. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
So
and I also found it in the past few years since I started my YouTube channel, and we started to gather a community around the stuff that I share basically is that before that I felt also very isolated and alone.
Yeah.
And it was like a very uncomfortable place to be during your spiritual evolution, since you're like going through so many stuff and there's like no one that you can share it with. Like there are these amazing things that are happening to you, and like no one is ready to receive it or to even hear about it, basically.
Mhm.
Not to mention to understand it.
Right.
And yeah, like the best remedy for that is like finding people who are on the same wavelength, basically, as you are. And like at least in that energy, in that space, to fully be yourself. Like you don't have to pretend that, okay, like I'm not that spiritual, I can like behave normally too or something.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
like I think many of us have this thing in our lives that we had our awakening, and but still we have to go to work, we have our family dinners and all that stuff. So when we're around people who are stuck in a lower vibration, then we have this 3D version of ourselves, this old personality, which is behaving in a predictable and acceptable way and is saying all the right things that are acceptable for everyone. And then when you're alone, then you have your other life when you are permitting yourself to be more of who you are, and you're like not censoring yourself as much. And yeah, like I think at the time is coming for to like blend the two together.
Yeah.
Like you can in the beginning, like you can find your when you're alone, you can find your spiritual self, like who am I really, or like what makes sense to me, what is important to me, like how do I want to express myself, how do I see myself as a human being, like living here on planet Earth. And yeah, like and integrate that higher perspective into your day-to-day activities as well,
Mhm.
and basically start to live from that higher perspective even during your mundane stuff, like when you're at work or when you're meeting people, like even in those situations, like act and like function from that higher perspective. Like you don't have to like educate people or like force information upon them or anything, just yeah, like just stay in your truth and like hold that energy, like, and don't let people like persuade you in different directions if that is not in alignment with who you are or who you want to be, basically. Like if they're like taking you in a direction which is not representative of who you are or what you want to achieve, then just simply say no, like I'm not going to take part in that.
Right.
Because it's like no longer representative of who you are. Just yeah, like do things and say things that are actually in alignment with your truth, basically. Like that's the best medicine that you can have in your life
Right.
after the past few thousands of years of living in lies and illusions.
Right. And for a good reason at that time. We're not in that space anymore. You're right. We are in this space. And the thing that I kept hearing while you were speaking too, I just need to say it is, and don't forget to be gentle with yourself. You're not going to be perfect at this. Perfection is a subjective term anyway, and just know that you might, not quite make it completely to your chosen ideal in a day. Just that's okay. That is you being human and learning along the way. The symbol of us being these children has just come up so much lately. Like the other one is we're acting as if we should be able to do like Evel Knievel kind of style on our bicycle, but we still got training wheels and a horn. We're still learning how to not fall down.
Yeah.
And so give yourself credit. You will get to that, whatever the place is that you are being called to and know that is true for you. However, there are steps. You can't jump into a new video game and start on level 100 and expect to do very well. There are steps that teach us how to get to that next space, and also too, it's okay to leave a conversation. That's something that I struggle with. I feel like I have to give an excuse, and to me that means I have to say something that's not true. You know what I mean? And so often I'll just endure it. But I'm teaching myself, all I have to say is, I have to go.
Yeah.
You don't have to say
Thank you.
why. You don't have to go and just, I have to go and then do it, and
yeah, like I really enjoyed like big like public figures and like giving interviews. Like I've seen like also with the Dalai Lama, like I think there was like a documentary that 10 questions for the Dalai Lama or something. Like that was the documentary, like preparing to meet the guy and like ask him 10 questions. And after 6th question, he was like, okay, thank you. She didn't just left.
what you gotta do, right? And it's funny when people, I mean, yeah, even the Dalai Lama, like everybody needs to be able, it's helpful. There's no need, have tos, there's no right or wrong. It's simply, it's easier. That there's less resistance when we just allow ourselves that space that we would grant anyone else. You know what I mean? Like most of my life, I've treated myself more poorly than the strangest stranger on the street. You know what I mean? And, affording myself, ourself, the right to be okay, to take care of yourself. It's such a strange thing how foreign it seems to most of us starseeds, because we are service oriented. And then we're brought up with this false idea that to be of true service, if it's godly service, then it hurts you, then you're gonna go without something, then you're gonna have to struggle more, and it's taking away from your own source, light, love, power. And that doesn't have to be the case. In fact, the contrary is true. When you take care of yourself, you're taking care of everybody else. It sounds like such a line of BS, and I know, but it's not. It's true. As we take care of ourselves, we then raise our frequency. And as we raise our frequency, everything in our vicinity is affected by that. And it's really fun to pull back and look at the human form, because you see these energy fields. There's like these rings that go around, and it's like the toroidal field of the planet, only it's in human form. It's so cool. Did I say that word right? I always mess that up. Oh, I might not have said it right, but it's like that. And as we raise our frequency, our vibration goes farther and farther and farther out. And it's kind of like, and that's why I keep seeing this whole field of dominoes, I think too, is that we affect everything within our vicinity, and then that affects the next, and then the next, and the next. And it truly is a still pond with a pebble. The ripples go out forever and cause such an amazing, beautiful change. That starts from self-care. That starts from letting yourself take a break if you need it. From if you're having a struggle at work, it's the best solution. Or work, even in a grocery store, I find this to be useful sometimes, because grocery stores for me are there's a lot of energy there that I really can't. So if I need a break, I have a full cart, I'm not done yet, but I need a break before I go talk to that person who wants to ask me 18 million questions. I'm going to go to the bathroom, and in the bathroom, I can recenter, at work as well, go into the stall. No one's going to bother you for that 5 minutes that you need to recenter, and just be in that space, pull that love light down from God through your crown chakra, pull the love light up from the core of Mother Gaia, and let yourself be centered. And then you can go back out there and deal with the people that may not be as easy to deal with, because then they're easier to deal with at that point, and you're no longer an open scab.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like it's very difficult. I'm also struggling with that, like how to like navigate those situations when you're in the middle of a social interaction and your energy is not very centered. And yeah, like the more you do it, the better you get at it. Like I also evolved a lot regarding this in the past few years, especially like since what we have experienced in the past 2 years, like the topics that thou shalt not speak about on YouTube. And like, like it's everywhere, and like everyone is going to talk about it, and you could like bet on it. Like if you go to a friend's meeting or like a family dinner, like you can bet that it's going to come up in the conversation at a certain point.
Right.
And yeah, like it's very unpleasant energetically, because I was also like very much challenged by that whole situation. And like that being like shoved into your face again and again, like on all levels, was like very irritating, especially if you're like down energetically. And yeah, like those were very challenging, but it made me stronger. So yeah, like because I had to like maneuver with those energies, and like how to like filter it out, and like, okay, like, no, thank you. I'm not going to participate in that. And even if like they were like, I was like isolating myself energetically. And yeah, like I love the mantra that, hey, like we may not agree on everything, but thank God we don't have to. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And I will like let them continue and like express themselves. And yes, yes. Okay. Thank you. Moving on.
Right. Right. And for what they're experiencing in their moment is correct for them at that moment. It doesn't have to be correct for me, you know. And I agree with you. I went by a rule. I'm sure a lot of people hear this, but you know, it's not really a rule, but it was a good guideline to not discuss money, politics, or religion with most people, because that just causes conflict and disagreement comes up, and why do it, you know? And so, and then all of a sudden we're in this space where what you were talking about is truly just a bunch of politics, really, you know. And so the politics were affecting us in enough way that everyone wanted to talk about it all the freaking time. And like you said, it did feel very disharmonious. And I'm happy that we're moving away from that. Like there are a few people who are still hanging on to that conversation, you know, and really want to go into it. But it's really, I am noticing that the vast majority of people, even those who don't really seem to really understand what awakening is, or aren't really involved in it consciously at this moment, are coming into a more open-hearted acceptance space. And I really want to, Hunter Moon is anchoring the light in Mount Shasta for us. Thank you. I love that place. I'm happy you're there. Congratulations. You know, and any one of us, every one of us are in a space on this planet right now specific to what the need is for all. And you know, we don't even realize why we're being called to certain places, but some places like Mount Shasta, it's like, I know where I'm at, you know what I mean? But like, look into the history of the area that you're in if you're interested in that. That's been coming through a lot for everybody I've been talking to, is that we're all, I've seen it before, but it's fun to see how many people are discovering it. And when they discover why, not even so much why, but understand the history of the place on the planet that they're in, then it's simpler for them to use that space to transmute that energy and let that energy move through us. We are conduits pulling this energy that doesn't really want to be here anymore out. And we're also these entities that are drawing the light in, you know. And so you're in the space that you are in right now for a reason. And if you're on your way to move someplace, you know you're being called there. It's just really cool. And that was a ramble. I apologize.
It's perfectly fine. Yeah, like I also regarding Mount Shasta, like being attracted to places, like that's a very obvious one. Like everyone knows about Mount Shasta being a sacred place and portal and all. But you can be drawn to other places that are very similar. You just don't know that it's that. You don't know that it's a portal, or you don't know that there's something underground, or that you need to anchor something at that place. Just by some reason you move to that location, or you go on a vacation there and do stuff. And yeah, like maybe logically you won't even know that, oh, I activated the portal, or maybe there is something underground here that I work with. Just because it's like not common knowledge, it doesn't mean that you're not doing very crucial planetary work, basically.
Right. And you can fill into it too. It doesn't have to be just looking for history of an area. Like I understood some of the energy of what I'm where I live now upon entrance, but I felt into it a bit more and kind of channeled into it. I saw a lot of really interesting things that were later confirmed looking it up. You know, it's kind of fun to be able to do that for validation, but know that that's also a method that you can use. Just go into a place of meditation and ask. You know, always invite, like Archangel Michael's awesome. I mean, but you know, that's who I usually invite in. That's usually the first name I say anyway. But you know, whoever you feel is a good guide, just in bringing in your intention while you do it. So when you bring in your intention and your consent, then there's a lot of revelation that can occur in that time. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, like basically going back to some of our basic questions, not questions,
Sorry.
but basic thing. But yeah, like we were talking about like how to hold your own energy, basically. Like there's also part of like how you can hold the energy of your true authentic self and all under all circumstances. And yeah, like but still like we are facing challenges over and over again because like new stuff are just constantly like coming up. And it was like a common thing that I have heard also from you, because you also have connections with other people, like you have your own community too. And also from the Patreon members were like expressing that things are coming up that they didn't even realize that they had, like all the issues that you thought that maybe you worked through it, or stuff that didn't really feel like an issue maybe 10 years ago, but now it's a problem.
Yeah.
Because like we're changing so much and we're becoming, yeah, like much more like we're fine tuning ourselves, like we're becoming high vibrational, and maybe like things that were okay maybe 10 years ago for you are like a huge problem right now, because like you're like so much refined and you have worked through so much, you became higher vibrational, and like right now that is what is holding you back from reaching the next step, basically. And I have also noticed this in relationships too. For example, with my wife as well, like they're all like normal relationships, and we have ours, which is like common relationships. I mean, like people who like come together and like get married, but they're like not sure, like, hey, like maybe I didn't marry the right person, or like they're having doubts constantly about their relationship. And we were like, from the beginning, for us, it was like very clear that okay, like we're going to we're going to come together, like we're going to live together. It's okay. But yeah, like it's also very difficult and challenging in the sense that both of us are very empathic, and like both of us are very in tune with the other person's energies and ourselves as well. And that's all wonderful and beautiful. But when something is happening, or like something is a bit like off, there is like a little problem that is like super amplified. Like maybe to a normal relationship, it wouldn't be, they wouldn't even consider it or paying it attention or at all. But for us in our relationship, it's a problem. Like it's really disruptive and like on our day-to-day activities, like in generally. So, and that's kind of also like forcing us to like address it as soon as possible, because it's like very uncomfortable for both of us. And yeah, like that's why it's so challenging in living with your divine counterpart.
Right. The twin flame.
Yeah. Because like you're each other's catalyst and you reflect and amplify, and it's an awesome thing for growing, but it's also very challenging too. So yeah.
Right. And
On
we
top,
already live in a house of mirrors, but then you have a mirror in front of you all the time as well.
yeah, like not just mirror, but like making it far stronger. Yeah, like if something is a problem, that's like super a huge problem. That's usually how it works. But yeah, like but because like both of us are very in tune with ourselves and each other, like we can work through it very easily. So that's like the benefits of it, basically. But it's very similar, I think, with the relationship with yourself as well. Like if you're like very much in tune with yourself and highly sensitive, and you're more, yeah, like yeah, like I don't want to like categorize people because yeah, like maybe I went through my awakening like 10 years ago and I worked through a lot of stuff in the past decade. Other people were like awakened decades ago or maybe just last year. But maybe you were awakened last year, you did a lot more work in far less time than I did in 10 years. So there are no standards for this. But yeah, like the more you're advanced on this journey, the little things become more of a problem to you, like the little disharmonious stuff that may come up in your being, like maybe habits, or you react in a very negative way to something that is seemed very insignificant. But now that you like work so much on yourself and you're like so much more higher vibrational, and that little thing comes up and you see like, oh, like that's a real problem right now.
Yeah,
Like I really need to address that issue right now.
right. 100%, you know, and as that comes up, it feels so uncomfortable. You're overwhelmed with being compelled to address it. Just remember to take your time, and again, to be gentle with yourself as that happens, you know, and like we talked about, there are layers, or it looks like a spiral, truly, you know, it's a spiral of, so as you go around in the spiral, you're still going up, but you're still going to see, just imagine it's like it's like a rainbow sphere, not sphere, like tube.
Yeah.
What's the right word anyway? And so you're going to see that same color again as you circle around. It's not that you haven't been there before. It's not that you haven't healed through that before. It's simply that you're at another level of it where you can see it more truly in places, like you said, that you wouldn't have noticed before because you were at a different point. You weren't there yet. You hadn't healed the 15 other things that needed to happen to get to that point again. As we circle around again, you're going to find yourself in front of that stuff again that's coming up, that needs to be addressed. Just remember that you have done that work. Something came through a channel while I was doing a video the other day that said, and it was really reassuring for me, but that some of this stuff, as it cycles through, isn't so much that it's showing us what needs to be healed, but to remind you how much progress we have made. There's like this feeling like a lot of individuals on this planet right now are feeling like they haven't made much progress because it has been gradual. There's a reason for that being gradual, not simply to make it easier exactly for us, but to make sure, because it's not easier, it's hard to have patience, honestly. But this gradual element of this shift is in order to collect give the opportunity for as many souls to come into this awakening space as possible. You know, if it came in really strong, you know, when this all started going down, most of us would have not been able to make it to this point, you know, and 100%, it doesn't matter how long you've been on this awakening journey, is that you're here now, and we're all teachers. We all have something beautiful to share, and we're all students as well, you know, and as we move through this, the energy of this moon is going to be a lingering energy. Like it feels like a week worth of energy that's going to come through. And I think a lot of that has to do with Lionsgate. Lionsgate is still affecting us very strongly. In fact, we're in a Lionsgate energy now that is typically more intense than is on the actual 8/8 portal day in previous years. Like we're still here, but there's this weird logical disconnect for me that I'm finding. Is like, well, we're past it, right? What's all this stuff that I'm feeling? What's all this stuff coming up? How come? And we're still here. Remember, the Syrian star is amplifying our sun times 10 also, and we're getting bombarded by more solar flares every single day, you know, and like technology's out of whack, not just because of the solar weather from these solar flares, but also the AI element is leaving this experience, or rather we're moving to a place where they can't really follow. And so this is all happening at the same time. So there's that uneasiness And whenever there's something leaving, whenever there's something that's departing after a time, there's always this experience, this feeling of like, wait, and so we're feeling that. There's a lot of that almost mournful, weird feeling that doesn't feel like it has a place to live. And it's not you. You're not feeling yourself so much as you're feeling this experience. Everything, no matter how conflicting it seems to be when we're sharing a space with energy, you become familiar and comfortable enough in that space. And when that changes, there is a goodbye, and so perhaps some individuals may even be feeling a little bit of mournful goodbye as well, saying goodbye to a longtime friend in some ways, whether or not it felt like a friend at the time, so that's happening too. Allow yourself to cry is my biggest thing I'm supposed to say. Allow yourself to cry and to laugh. Release it. You're not meant to hold it. You're not the holder, you're the releaser. So, sorry.
Yeah, like it's also comes in tune with our minds as well. I think I heard it from Arcturus Ra. He also has a YouTube channel many years ago, that the human mind was like not built to like hold information, and we're like training our kids to like retain as much possible tangible information as they can. And it just doesn't work. Like you're not this walking encyclopedia.
Right.
And like instead of like our mind was like not meant to hold information, but rather to stream information.
Mm-hmm.
And like being in that now moment, being connected to your higher self, like receiving everything that you need to know when you need to know it. And I also remember that I heard it, I'm not sure like where, I think from Buddhists maybe, that they're describing the state of enlightenment, not like you having visions and like receiving information beforehand, but basically like you're knowing all that you need to know when you need to know it. So you're in that constant place of like being now and like fully aligned with your higher self, and like receiving everything that you need, basically, and perfect alignment. I don't know, like if anyone remembers from The Matrix, there's this scene where they are, I think they're trying to escape from the rooftop of that building or something. There's this helicopter, and they're like, "Do you know can you fly it?" No, but I can't. But I will learn or something.
Right.
And just phones the higher self, hey, like download the program for I don't know what type of helicopter. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go.
Right.
Like, hey, like we are not at that place right now, but that's kind of like also being able to like illustrate like what could be possible.
Yeah.
And I think like some of us are like tapping into that type of connectedness of like bringing through information that you, I know, like wouldn't even consider knowing stuff, like when you're like very centered and there's a question or there's a situation and all of a sudden you have the answers for it. All of a sudden you know what needs to be done, even though you have never encountered such a situation before.
Right. Right.
Just like being connected and like being in that. I think that's very similar to our fifth dimensional selves, like being more in alignment with our high vibrational self.
Mm-hmm.
Like from time to time we tap into that. And the more we work on ourselves, we're like moving much more closer to it. So it's not just like a miraculous occasion that happens every 4 years. It's like, I can consciously make that happen if I want to do it, basically.
Exactly. It's like we have an internal Siri, like that. Is that what it's called? The little robot thing that you talk to and it lights up and it answers questions for you. Something like that. Yeah, I don't have one, but it's like we have that available to us. We can just, and it's, for me, I've noticed it more when I'm talking to other people and they ask a question. It's easier to access for me when I'm wondering what the answer is for somebody else. But what's really fascinating is that when you're in that space, to just kind of center yourself and kind of like as if you're in a channel or meditate or something, and then ask a question. But it's funny because you don't get to ask it. I find that not get to, but just as I am about to ask a question, as soon as that question has been fully formulated and hasn't quite passed my lips, the answer is already there. It's kind of a game for me sometimes, so I try to hurry and ask it so I can ask it before. It doesn't work that way, but it's kind of funny. And that answer will just come. We have immediate access to all of it. That's actually what the Akashic truly is, basically, is a massive library in concept. It's so hard to produce a way for us to understand some of these things that are so normal and have been here for so long. It's just that we have been living in this box, in this matrix. It needs to be pointed out, I think, that the matrix has been brought up in my day just today. And it's just a little bit after lunchtime here now. And I've already heard 7 different people refer to the matrix today, which I think is fascinating.
I was the 7th.
Yeah, you were the 7th.
Okay.
And that's you. You love that number. Well, it's a good number, but isn't that like a real important number for you specifically?
Yeah, it is.
Awesome. So yeah. While this is being brought up, I think that a lot of it's just to remind us that we are in an illusion space. And, in an illusion space, you can behave as if it's true, or behave however feels correct to you. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that, I guess, is that a lot of us have automatically, like Guardian said at the beginning of this conversation, taught ourselves to wear different masks, to be different people, to present ourselves differently in different groups of people, and it's been honestly, it's been fun learning how to do that. But there is definitely that feeling in your gut, like when you're a kid and you're just getting ready to like say something mean to your mother, or thinking about it, you know what I mean? And there's that like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But once it's done, and once you just openly be free about who you are, you don't have to lay it on thick, but just present itself, let it present itself, the freedom that is had from that. And not only that, but also the enlightenment that these different individuals get to have. We activate people a little bit at a time. I've noticed more than not, people kind of like, they'll listen and then kind of wander away, almost a little bit of nervous concern in their eyes. But then, sometimes years later, they've come back into my experience again and been like our full on awakening and like, hey, and we are planting seeds. And that is all that we're really meant to do. When we are being in alignment with who we truly are, we are in a space that is a place that's easy. It's ease, it's love, it's light, it's floaty, and I've been doing that more and more lately, and people have been talking about me having Tourette's because sometimes I'll just channel while I'm talking to somebody, and that's okay. I actually, at an earlier time in my life, a judgment like that would have affected me. Now I find it comical, but
Yeah, like I don't remember the quote, but it was like something similar, that being considered weird or like abnormal is like actually a compliment from people who are like stuck in the matrix.
Right. And it's interesting how the tables have turned in a lot of ways. Like for, Guardian and I have been on this awakening experience for a few years, and we've got to see how a lot of us have been kind of labeled as like the conspiracy theorist, the crazy cuckoo, crazy cat lady, or whatever kind of stuff. And what's fascinating is that's shifting, and there are more and more people waking up. And as a result, people like I've been called the crazy garden lady. People are coming to the crazy garden lady for with information and being like, hey, my child just had this experience, and it turns out that the daughter just experienced her first astral projection, and like, but it's strange. I'm still not sure how to experience that, because I still am surprised each time, and happily so, but it's becoming more and more normal. And that's telling me that we are shifting very quickly into that space, and it's being done with the catalyst of this energy, and so I just need to, I want to, if that's okay, to reiterate that as these things come through, they're for you to release. They're not for you to hold on to and to dissect. They're not for us to try to decide where they came from or anything. It is simply something that needs to be observed. So, and often again, it's just we need to laugh or cry. The channeled message that came through, and I'm going to make a short video for it, but it was talking about the playfulness, the childlike nature of who we truly are. In essence, our authentic self is a child, is at play, is playing tag, digging in the sand, dancing and laughing with their fellows, and that's the space that when we go there, we are doing service for the world and the all as we raise that vibration. And so if you can't get there today, allow yourself to cry, and then you will be able to be released enough to do that, I guess is what I'm supposed to say. The release is very important.
Yeah, and it's a process. Like I think many of us are like so programmed towards like getting results quickly. Like I want instant success today.
Right.
Or like do this and activate your third eye in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And all these like catchy stuff. But yeah, like it's like not a destination, or like there isn't like a shortcut to anything, basically. Like it's a process that all of us like have to go through, and like be patient with yourself. And like, okay, like maybe other people are like far advanced on their journey and you're not at that place, and that's perfectly okay, but because that makes sense for them, but you're not on the same path. Like you're going to have your own unique journey with the whole stuff. So, and what I also learned from art and exploring myself is like don't necessarily compare yourselves to others who are like super like far advanced on the journey, but like be focused, process oriented, and like how much have you progressed compared to yourself, basically.
Right.
Because like it's a lengthy process, and like we spend so much time here on Earth, like being observing all the like the negative stuff and the segregative programming stuff, and it's not going to take equally amount of time to like, it's not going to take us equal amount of time to like release it or like transform it, because like if you put your intention into it and you actually act upon it, like you can very quickly work through stuff. But still it's going to take time, because like the ego mind and your conscious awakening self is like unable to go so fast. It needs time to process and integrate and like realize stuff and rationalize things and get used to new ideas. So yeah, like that takes time. And just be gentle with yourself, as you said.
Yeah. I actually was given a vision that described exactly that. It looks like a crystal, a clear quartz crystal, but it's pyramid-esque, but there's multiple sides to it, many sides, and each of the smooth sides is someone else's path up to the peak of the mountain. And there's so many of them, and we all have our path, and each path may be different, but it still gets to the same destination. And there's a reason that we're aligned in that way. It's really cool. I don't really, this is just the visual I was getting. I'm not really that great at interpreting exactly what this means specifically. But as we each ascend up this crystal mountain, we're pulling the colors, the energy of the collective with us, and they're trailing behind. It's as if when you're climbing a mountain covered in snow, you need to stomp your feet deeply to make a path. It's kind of like that's what we're sort of doing for these colors. We're helping them to make their way up to the peak also. And so yeah, my journey is different than Guardians, but it's similar also. Our journeys are all different from each other, just slightly enough for us to activate those that can then follow up to that peak of that mountain, and yeah, some of our paths are maybe they take more time than others, and doesn't mean that path is wrong. That is a beautiful mission that person has chosen to take, and We can also switch our paths when we're in alignment in that space, if that's something that you feel called to do. However, if that's something that you are in and that feels correct to you, then you are correct. You are pulling people with you. You're assisting those to have a path to then follow behind you. And that's what that is. It's so cool that you brought that up.
Yeah, thank you. Also, like, I wanted to elaborate on that. Like, we're all on our unique paths, and I also remember like hearing about people talking about their awakening and what experiences they had, like when I was in the beginning of my process, and I was like, oh, like, why didn't I have such amazing experiences?
Yeah.
Like later on, I did have my own unique experiences, which are now considered amazing by other people, but for me, they are normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah, like we're all in our own path. And like what I have went through is, I think it's very similar to your stuff. Like we shared a lot in the past 2 years. And we are both like very much in tune with on many fronts, but still we like experience the same thing from a different perspective a bit. And like what I have experienced and what I can share is like is reaching a type of people, and what you have experienced and what you're sharing is reaching another group of people. And like it's that way because like this is how we can like, I know, like be more diverse and like reach more souls and to activate them, to bring them together more effectively. And also like it enriches the whole collective basically. If we were like repeating the same thing over and over again, then it would be very monotonous.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's very like artificial AI-ish type of thing, like what they were trying to achieve basically. Like also that whole programming of like being normal and like conform yourself to the societal norms is basically also type of thing to program people to function from that AI perspective, you know, like you're a part of the hive and like you're expected to function and think in a specific way, even though it's like contrary to our human nature. Like we're free and free flowing, I know, like very erratic mammals who like can drift from one location to the other, and like attention splits in different directions. And we're also very emotional as well.
Yes. Right.
And very
So
unpredictable. Yeah.
yeah. And it's the lack of variety is a breeding space for imbalance, being off balance. You know, in order for there to be balance, we must have all represented, and that's part of who you are. How part of everyone who's here is that we are very similar, but just enough different that there can be balance and light. You know, and I remember early on the same experience. I was very annoyed by hearing about all these butterflies and rainbows and giddy joy and hooray, I'm free. And now I can see all these cool colors and I'm happy. And that was not my beginning of my awakening at all. Like, and I went through, I kept, again, that spiral I would go back into. There was a lot to be healed. And for me, it was very uncomfortable, you know, and especially not knowing what was happening. Like at that time, no one talked about any of this stuff, like nobody. And those who did were highly medicated and on their way to a psychiatric facility. You know what I mean? Like, and so you just didn't hear about it. So I had no idea what was happening, particularly the dark night of the soul. Not knowing what was happening in that experience was what I needed, obviously, for my journey. As soon as I knew what it was gone within a few more days. Like it was, so I wasn't supposed to know while I was in it, or it wouldn't have been as effective. I'm assuming, because it always works out the way it's supposed to. It always does, despite however much resistance I provide.
Yeah, like when you're in the middle of it, it can like feel very harsh and uncomfortable. But later on, like looking back, you will say like, oh, like that made perfect sense that it was that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also like today is like very useful that you have the internet and like so many people are sharing their journeys and knowledge regarding this stuff. And like also when I started out on my journey, I experienced many weird stuff, like also the empathic abilities and how energy works. And yeah, like it was very frightening and weird. Like I couldn't control it. I didn't even know like what was happening to me. And like that can also be like very frightening as well. Like when you have no clue, like there's something wrong and I don't know what is happening.
Right.
But after you find out that, hey, like this is so and so, like they even have a name for it, and like other people are doing it, and you have all this wonderful information that can guide you to manage your own energy, then you can like transform the whole experience very quickly, basically. You don't have to suffer and like take it as a burden. You can transform it and like take the things that were, yeah, like you were, I wouldn't say like detrimental, but stuff that you were considering as a curse, like you're being too sensitive and like having weird experiences, and like turn it around and actually like do something creative and constructive with it, basically. That's what they're there for.
Right. And you actually triggered something that I would like to say too, is that right now during this energy experience, a lot of people who already have maybe come online with some of their abilities, some of their gifts, are that those things are becoming almost energized right now, and they're coming on and becoming more noticeable, especially in the next couple of days. So I'm guessing, right, we're in the space right now. So just be aware, you know, these things come on line, you know, you're not alone and you're okay. You know, it's cool. Then there's definitely ways to learn how to maneuver them. We have a Zoom meeting tomorrow for anyone who has any questions, by the way, too. That's at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And Guardian has his Patreon meeting every week as well. I don't know what usually we vote and then find out what the date is. So we don't know yet when it's going to be, but every week he has a meeting unless something comes up. And in that space, you can ask questions. You know, you're not looked at as weird or anything like that. All of us that are in that room have had those same experiences. Yeah, we are, you know, and it's a good thing. It's a thing, something to celebrate, you know, and to know that you're not alone. And, you know, the only difference between someone who's been on this awakening journey longer than you is longer than somebody who's just awakening, is that we have a little bit more practice, and that's it. Like literally, that's it. And so, however, having had that time to practice, we can impart that our own wisdom that we have gained along the way on to anyone else who's going through that too. You know, so if you're interested in my Zoom meetings, you can click on the link here for higher vibrations, and it'll take you to my channel. And in my community section, I post every week.
And the higher vibrations channel link is in the title of the video, and will like take you directly to her channel too. And there you will find it in the community section.
Right. Thank you.
As we talked about it, like the best cure for like for this isolation and like feeling alone and like being like cut off from everyone else, is the best cure for it is to connect with like-minded people. And here you have your golden opportunity to do so. Like you don't have to, I don't know, like turn on your microphone or video. Like you can just be present and like be in that same space with like-minded people. Also, as you told us that you can just, I don't know, like type in your questions into the chat box, and higher vibrations will read it to you for you. And just being around such people can really, really be a superb cure for all the problems that we have in the beginning, basically.
Yeah, that's why I have a YouTube channel. That's why I've agreed to do it, is simply that when I found out what it was that I was going through, and it took away any uncomfortable element, honestly and truly. Like, you know, there's still some moments that are uncomfortable as we are transmuting things that we didn't expect to have. Like I was planning on going to the bank, but instead I'm in meditation, full on transmutation, you know, like that's happens sometimes. But you know, and so in this space, you know, we can kind of compare notes, and you can just be in this understanding that you're not alone, and that, and what it is that you're going through. it's shockingly surprising that how many things we've been going through our whole lives, and just learned to excuse it away for whatever, figured out a way to excuse it away or make it seem normal, when in fact it's part of ascension, and you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, you just didn't know what you were doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so thank you for joining us, everyone. Thank you, High Vibrations, and also for facilitating the Zoom calls as well. If you haven't done so, like, check it out, please. And yeah, like, have an awesome full moon, and see you everyone next week. Bye.